Hey everyone, today we're looking at something Peter says to religious leaders in the book of Acts, and then something Peter himself says in one of his letters. The high priest questioned them, saying, "We gave you strict orders not to teach in this name, yet here you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and you are determined to bring this man's blood against us." But Peter and the apostles answered, "We must obey God rather than any human authority." And from 1 Peter, "For the Lord's sake, accept the authority of every human institution, whether of the emperor as supreme or of governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to praise those who do right." So which is it, Peter? Are we supposed to obey authorities? When do we obey them? When do we not? Are we supposed to respect them, or are we supposed to challenge them? Is this just an example of youth versus maturity, right? Early on in Acts, he's just starting in his ministry, but later on, and as he's writing these letters, he's grown up a little bit and he has a better perspective. Or how can this be true that you're not supposed to obey these religious authorities, but you are supposed to obey the Roman emperor, the Caesar, who is famous for persecuting Christians? Well, I put these together to at least show that the Christian relationship to authorities is always a bit complicated. And sometimes it's not a question of which authority to obey, God or human, but when. I think we need to watch out for those who might quote either one of those verses without much consistency. Are we sometimes calling for submission and then sometimes calling for rejection because that fits my preferences or what I'd like to do or what I already think is best? Or are we making that call on whether authorities are going against the way of Christ or actually maybe in line with it, right? Do I refuse to obey because it's calling me to self-sacrifice and I just don't like that? Really, accepting authority and obeying authority are not the same thing, right? We've kind of been talking about them like they are, but that there is a difference there. Because you can accept that someone or something is an authority, but then choose sometimes to not obey it, if that seems like where the gospel is calling you. The term for this is civil disobedience. It's to break an unjust law that's set by these divinely ordained authorities in order to expose the injustice of that law. But when you do that, you know you're going to face a legal consequence for breaking that. And hopefully some change and good comes from it. I mean, Peter in Acts should know from experience that sometimes authorities will punish you for doing what's right. And we, if we have the boldness of the Spirit we talked about last week, should be willing to face those consequences. I think what we really need is to pray for the Spirit, for the humility, and to be reflective enough to know when we actually are following what's right, and we're following the way of Jesus, even if it does cost us something.